I should just say that if you do want to help and you want to know about anybody who might have been trapped in that building and you want to call the emergency line, there is a line. It's 0800 096 1233. That's 0800 096 1233. You're watching BBC News. Well, obviously we've heard from people who've been helping out here today. There's going to be an awful lot of questions as well, though, about buildings of this nature. High-rise buildings, particularly old buildings. This one was built in 1973. It only has one stairwell in and out, one exit route for those people who were on the upper floors. And there'll be a lot of questions asked about, of course, building regulations in the wake of this. David Shukman has been taking a look at what might just be discussed in this debate.
The wreckage of Grenfell House stands amid a cluster of tower blocks. Like many cities around the world, London has seen the rise of the skyscraper. Homes and offices perched high above street level with a host of safety rules designed to resist fire. But 8 years ago, a blaze at this tower block in South London killed 6 people. Southwark Council was fined for breaching fire regulations. And there are plenty of expert voices today saying that the lessons of what happened here at Lakanal House have not been learned.
Lakanal House demonstrated people were at risk in their own homes. The fire in West London last night, this morning, has demonstrated that they are still at risk in their own homes. These fires shouldn't be happening in 21st century London. We've got the ability to stop them from happening, and when fires do break out, to restrict them to small areas of flats or buildings.
One key question in the spotlight today is about the design of tower blocks and how they're meant to keep people safe in case a fire breaks out. Now, normally a fire hose can only reach about 15 metres. Grenfell Tower stands 67 metres high. In America, they rely on what's called active safety. Sprinklers fight fires in every room, but that can be expensive. The basic principle here, until recently, has been passive safety, designing the building to confine any blaze to a single room. Clearly that's failed. Investigators will want to know why. Another focus will be on the cladding fitted to the outside of the building. Panels to improve insulation and the look of older buildings like Grenfell Tower. But dozens of fires have been linked to cladding around the world. 2 years ago, a skyscraper in Dubai caught fire and the cladding was blamed. New rules there have tightened up on the kind of materials that can be used. And investigators here will explore what role the cladding might have played.
In the UK, it has to be of what we call of limited combustibility, and I'm sure that's going to be questioned now after this fire, what exactly that means and on what these types of cladding systems are adding to the fire load on the building.
It was after the Second World War that councils answered the housing crisis by moving away from old terraced homes into new high-rise tower blocks. But their safety from fire depends on good design and careful maintenance. The London Mayor says people living in tower blocks will now need to be reassured. And fire professionals are shocked by how this blaze spread.
Literally every single floor was on fire internally. We don't usually see that. You see 1 floor, 2 floors, and then a hopping from floor to floor, maybe, over a period of time. But you would not normally see an entire facade on fire and then all the interior on fire at the same time. So that's what's very unusual.
So the fire overcame whatever safety features were in place. Last year, the government promised a review into fire safety in tower blocks, but then delayed it. This disaster now makes that work a priority. David Shukman, BBC News.
Well, let's pick up some of those points. We can speak to Simon Lay. He's the UK representative of the Council for Tall Buildings, and he's also the director of Olsen, an international fire and risk consultancy. Good evening to you, Mr. Lay.
Good evening.
What do you think went wrong here?
It's really too early to say exactly what's gone wrong here. Any tragedy like this tends to be the result of a combination of a number of steps and factors happening. There's a lot of talk about things like the facade system, but it's really too early to tell exactly what's gone wrong here.
Obviously, we don't want to jump to conclusions, but as you say, a lot of people are talking about this rainproof cladding on the outside of the building. Has there been a debate about this cladding? Have there been other fires worldwide where concerns have been raised?
I think the thing we need to be aware about with cladding systems is they are incredibly complicated. They might look simple on the outside, but the details behind cladding and how it attaches to a building is a very complex part of a building. These types of cladding systems, overcladding using aluminium sort of panels, composite panels, are very common around the world. In some cases, with some instances, there have been issues with them. In other cases, they can be designed to be safe. It really comes down to the details, unfortunately.
There'll be a lot of people who perhaps don't live in high-rise blocks but do work in high-rise office buildings who would be quite surprised that there's only one exit out of a building like this and no sprinkler system.
It was perfectly normal until a few years ago in the UK to design a high-rise building without sprinklers. Sprinklers are introduced in other buildings around the world for lots of reasons, but the data in the UK just didn't support it. It didn't suggest that there was a need to introduce sprinklers. Similarly, having a single staircase in a building in the UK, in a residential building, is normal practice. It's what we've done for a very long time, and it hasn't shown any significant impact on fire safety.
When we come back,
from where I'm standing here, I can see 2 or 3 other apartment blocks, and I would dare say there's a lot of people who live in those who will be very nervous this evening.
I'm sure people will feel nervous. I would say that each building is different. Each building is an individual, and people really shouldn't feel nervous. Living in a high-rise building in the UK, whether it's an old building or a new one, is one of the safest places to live. Simply because we do spend a lot of time and attention looking after them, looking at them and worrying about how they're designed from a fire point of view.